get anxious? You get anxious about stuff, you get worried? Yeah, almost all of us. And there's like a couple different ways this can kind of appear. Hold on, before I go any further, right here, my boys, right here. Thank you. When we talk about anxiety, there's like different things that may cause us to be anxious. They may cause us to worry. One of those things is like test anxiety. You guys that are like, you don't test well. Like, you'll study, you know the content by heart, and you get to like your math test, and it's like, what's 10 plus 6? And you're like, I don't know, next question, right? Like, you think about it, or you're at, it's 16, but you get to the test and you don't know what the answer is. You get to the English test and you're like, what's a verb, what's a noun, what are all these things I gotta do? And you get anxious about it. Maybe for some of you guys, you get a little bit like any runners in the room, any like sprinters, cross-country people in the room, a handful of you guys? Yeah. Maybe you guys get like kind of race anxiety. You feel like when you're amping up, you're in the blocks, the guy is standing up, he says ready, set, and he's holding the gun above his head. No, it's a gun for track, it's not a real gun. But maybe when that's happening, you feel the stress and your heart starts beating, you start getting worried, you feel this tightness in your chest, you can't breathe. You're so focused on everything around you because you're so anxious about what's coming up next. Maybe you might have a little bit of home anxiety. Maybe the thought of being in your house and not doing anything, like literally sitting and doing nothing, makes you feel worried because you feel like if I'm not being productive, if I'm not doing the dishes, if I'm not doing my chores, if I'm not doing what my parents didn't even ask me to do, I don't have value. Maybe that's some of you in this room. But what I want to do is talk about anxiety. Everyone say anxiety.
Anxiety.
Like I said, anxiety is something that every single person probably has faced, is facing, or will face at some point in their life. Now, we talk about anxiety, it's a word that's thrown around so much, especially in pop culture. And I'm not talking about just being anxious. I'm talking about the genuine worry about everything around you. I'm talking about the genuine nervousness about everything going on. If you look up the word anxiety, Google tells you that it's a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an immediate event or something with an uncertain outcome. You know, like when you come back from school and your mom drops you off at home and is like, all right, go take the chicken out the freezer and I'll be back for it in a couple hours. And she's like, I'll be back in like 3 hours. So your home is 3 p.m. You're like balling up, you're sitting there, you're on Instagram, you're on TikTok, and it's 5:55 and you're like, I'm missing something. And you realize you forgot that chicken. And suddenly, for the next 5 minutes before your mom gets home, you're like, well, she's gonna kill me. This is it. This is the end of Sid the Sloth, bro. This is like over. It's done. And you like start panicking, and instead of like having this rest and being like, I'll just go take the chicken out and thaw it, you start like panicking. You're like, bro, she's gonna take my phone away. She's gonna take away my birthday. She's gonna take away my bedroom door. You start working through all this, right? But that's just for like some specific examples. Another example is like maybe you had a really uncomfortable conversation with a friend. Maybe after you talk with them, you guys kind of were at odds, you were butting heads super hard, and after that conversation, you didn't walk away being like, man, we're such good friends. You walked away going, what is next? What's happening? Maybe for some of you guys that are in relationships right now, that you have a boyfriend, you have a girlfriend, and you guys have been at odds, you've been fighting, and you finally send that text of, hey, we need to talk. Or you get that text, and you sit in that, and you wait and you replay every single thought, every single idea of what could possibly be said, right? You feel that? Do you guys understand what I'm talking about? So when we talk about anxiety, it's a feeling of nervousness, of unease, of worry that all of us face. Hey, really quickly, once again, I want to call out my boys right here. Right now, I'm not trying to call you guys out, I'm trying to call you guys up. I'm not going to say you guys are doing something wrong right now. What I want to say is you guys right now have the ability to leave this room into focus, and if you guys are going to use that for a different purpose, we can talk after this. But what we have a chance every single day to do is lead through our anxiety, to walk through our anxiety and not let it stop us, not let it hold us back from where we are. You see, we read it in the Bible, we read in Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 and 7. In 6 it says, don't be anxious about anything, But in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. In other words, what this verse says in some different translations, it says, don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. We keep reading on in verse 7. It says, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So, we have anxiety, we have this worry. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. And you read that, you're like, Caleb, that's it, right? That totally makes sense. No. I read that and I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to pray about that because that's my first response. But how often do we let that not be our first response? We're called to pray about everything. Not just the bad things, not just when things go wrong. God's not an insurance agent trying to sell us on him when things go wrong and he's there to repair things. But God's there to be with us in the celebration, in the excitement, in the joy. But he's there to celebrate with us. He's there to comfort us through the anxiety, through the worry and hurry of life. He's there to be with us. But we have to come to him first in prayer. I don't know what you're thinking. It is so hard to believe that. Don't worry about anything? What? Dude, I worry about getting pulled over all the time while I drive. I speed a lot. Like, this is full moment of clarity. I speed so much, and every time I hop in my car, I'm like, bro, my alignment's off. My tire treads are like super worn down. So like if a cop pulls me over, he's gonna write me so many tickets. And I start playing through like all of these scenarios in my mind. And I'm like thinking through all these things, and I'm not paying attention to how fast I'm driving. But that's just me driving. Maybe when you're walking through life, when you're walking through the hallways at school, when the school year starts back up, you're so worried about, what does everyone think about me? How do my friends see me? What do my teachers think about me when I'm not in their classroom? What do my friends say about me when I'm not there? And we start playing these scenarios out in our minds, and instead of running through this season, instead of turning to God and being like, God, I don't know what to do in this time, we worry, and we worry, and we spiral, and we spiral, and we spiral. And a lot of the times we let anxiety build up. We let it be this insane, hard truth that we think we have to face, that, man, life is terrible, life is bad, but the reality is it's not. Yes, I will fully admit life is hard. Life is crazy, life is difficult. But the cool part is we don't have to do this alone. We don't have to let anxiety be the stopping point. It doesn't have to be the spot where it ends. Because yes, we pray about everything. Well, what does that even mean? Well, we read it in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7. It says, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. He being God in this verse. Cast all your anxiety on him. In some verses it says, cast all your cares. Cast all your worries. Cast all your issues. Cast all these things. And it goes on and on and on. Cast all of these things on him because he cares for you. His burden is easy. His yoke is light. God can carry a lot more weight than you can by yourself. But why do I talk about anxiety? Why do I talk about this now? Well, honestly, I think summertime is one of those points in the year where we don't really know what to do with ourselves. Yeah, we want to go to the lake. We have plans of like, I'm going to build this epic fort. I'm going to go to the lake. I'm going to paddleboard every day. I'm going to go to summer camp. I'm going to go hang out with my friends. I'm going to go bowling. We're going to go do all of these crazy things. But we don't have that same structure as the school year. We don't have that constant homework feed to keep us entertained. We don't have our friends that we are forced to see every day for 8 hours a day. We don't have that same rhythm. We don't get to make the same choices because our parents make them for us over the summer. And it gets so weird. It gets so out of rhythm, and we begin to worry, and we begin to spiral thinking that we don't have control over anything. We don't know what comes next. We don't know what's happening. And I think that so many times we let anxiety kind of take the steering wheel. We let anxiety take control. We let anxiety be the one in control when we need to let joy be that. We need to let joy be the one in control. Now, I don't know about you guys, I am a big movie buff. I love movies, and one of my favorite movies I have just seen, it's probably in my top 10 movies already, just the one time I've seen it. It came out about a month ago. It's called Inside Out 2. Right? You guys seen it? Show of hands who've seen it? Yeah.
Because it's not
4 times? I've only seen it once, but man, totally moment of vulnerability, I cried. It's that good. It's that good. But here's the deal. In that movie, In the movie, I'm going to give a little bit of a spoiler, but throughout the movie, there's a character, she's one of the new emotions going around in Riley, the main character's head, and it's anxiety. She's anxiety. And what anxiety does, both in Riley's mind in the movie and in our minds, anxiety twists the image, it twists what we think reality is, and it creates these scenarios, it creates these things that were never meant to exist in the first place. It creates these scenarios of, well, this person thinks about me, this person goes, like in the movie, she's spiraling, she's looking at every possible snenario. There's like 600 different like opportunities or realities of what could happen, and she's just panicking. She's like that Doctor Strange where there's 14,365 and 14, like there's all these realities of what could happen, and all of them are negative. None of them are positive, none of them are about the great things that can come about, but it's because anxiety was in control. You see, for a chunk of the movie, joy isn't the one in control. Joy isn't the one leading the charge. Joy isn't the one making sure that life is great. But anxiety is the one taking control. Anxiety is the one grabbing on and fighting to make sure that we have to uphold this image. We have to do this thing. And so many times in our life, we let anxiety take the wheel without even realizing it. I know for me, once again, I just love being vulnerable with you guys. I love opening up and just, part of it is talking about myself, but I just love showing that God, even in 23 years of my life, I'm 10 years older than a lot of you guys, God's still doing stuff in me. It doesn't have to just happen in middle school or just in high school or way later in life. God's still doing stuff in me. And to be super honest, the last year and a half, 2 years, I've struggled with a lot of anxiety. With everything that's been going on, there's been so much happening. There has been so much with the youth group, with my job, with life, with every single aspect. There was one point last year when life was so insane. We were planning winter camp, we were planning summer camp, but we were doing something totally different. My car like blew up last year. All of these like kind of relationship things, like these friendships I had, felt like they were crumbling around me. And it finally was one morning I got to speak a message in front of our message development team. So like our lead pastor, Kevin Gear, and a bunch of our other pastors on staff. And man, they are intense. But I spoke my message, they gave me their feedback, and I was like, okay. And I walked back to my office, and I remember this day, it was February 2nd. I walked back to my office, I sit down, the other Caleb is in there, he has to run and grab his laptop, and he looks at me, he goes, Caleb, are you good? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, are you? And I just start bawling. I just start crying my eyes out. I'm hyperventilating. I don't know what to do. I can't focus on anything. I feel like my vision's getting blurry. I'm like having a hard time grounding myself. I don't know where I am. I'm trying to grab onto the seat next to me to think, where am I right now? What is happening? My mind is spiraling of every single wrong thing I've ever done in my entire life, like 22 years of life at that point. And so many things were going wrong, and I was having an anxiety attack. And in that moment, I realized, man, I'm not okay. I'm not seeing things the way I'm meant to see them. It took me a good 30, 45 minutes to ground myself. I had to hold on. I got some water. I got myself taken care of. People were there to support me. But from then on, I struggled with anxiety. I struggled with realizing that life is crazy. Life's uncertain. And through that uncertainty, it gets funky. I've had the most anxious, the most crazy, the most overwhelming past 6 months of my life. I mean, obviously I celebrated all the time, and I got married about a month ago, but the planning and the stress for that, the drama involved with that, the family dynamics, the every single aspect of that is tough. When everything is changing in my life, it's all tough. And I've told this story before, but throughout all of this, we're fighting with different families, we're dealing with all the stuff about the wedding. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take this weekend, I'm gonna go on this retreat with our worship team, and we're gonna go up to Glacier Bible Camp. It's just like a 2-night retreat. It's gonna be great. And I'm praying, we're like doing this moment of worship, and I really feel like God is reaching out and talking to me. And I get a text from my dad. And he goes, hey, can I call you? And my dad doesn't text me. My dad's pretty straight to the point. Like, if my dad needs something, he doesn't like wait around like, hey, what are you doing? Hey, how are you? My dad's like, hey, go to Harbor Freight and pick this up for me. Like, that's pretty straightforward, right? But he texts me and says, hey, can I call you? And I was like, oh, this isn't good. So I step out of the retreat, I go outside and I answer my phone. I was like, hey, what's up? And my mom had an appointment that day, a couple days earlier, and they were just getting, just regular doctoral stuff, like getting stuff figured out. And he tells me, he's like, hey, Caleb, they were running the numbers, they were doing the blood cell counts, they're doing everything, and mom has stage 1 uterine cancer. And so I'm there, I'm just bawling my eyes out. I'm like, what? And in that moment, instead of peace, I let anxiety take control. I let the worry and the hurry of what was around me overwhelm me. I wasn't thinking, man, God is so good right now. I wasn't thinking, man, isn't life so great? I was thinking, what's gonna happen? And it's preliminary, stage 1, so there's like barely anything to begin with, but my brain starts to spiral. I start to kind of lose it mentally. I'm starting to think, what could happen? But throughout all of that, I was thinking, man, what if I lost my mom here? What would life look like without her? What would happen? And I was always reminded of the verse where God says, and I don't have the slide up here, but it's, if he feeds the sparrows, if he dresses the lilies, how much would he care for you? When life is falling apart, when anxiety becomes overwhelming, how much does he see you? How much does he care for you? Because anxiety isn't this thing that we're meant to carry. It's not this burden that we're meant to have on our backs the entirety of our lives, but anxiety is meant to be this thing we bench, we put off to the side. Because when we let it overwhelm us, it changes the way we walk, the way we talk, the way we act, the way we see life. Anxiety takes control. But that's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to let anxiety have a place in the back. You see, just like Riley from Inside Out 2, anxiety was holding on so tight to the controls. There's a moment towards the end of the movie where she's running rampant. She's literally spiraling around the control center of her brain. She's running back and forth, and she's grabbing on as tight as she can to the controls. And Joy looks at anxiety and says, anxiety, you have to let Riley go. And I think for so many of us, that's where we are right now. We've been in the hurry and the worry of summertime. We've been in the middle of the craziness of summer. We're out of our routine. We're out of our rhythm. Our friends that are here, maybe they're in a split family and they're going somewhere else for the summer. Maybe friendships that were great in the summertime feel oddly weak right now. Maybe we've broken up with our significant other. Maybe things have gone crazy. Maybe our parents are fighting. Maybe life is exploding right now. And we feel so much anxiety that we spiral. And we let it take control. And what Jesus is telling us, he's not saying let anxiety stay in control. He's not saying let the hurry and the worry and the hurt and the pain of life hang on. Anxiety needs to let you go. But you have to let go of anxiety first. We cast our cares on him. We cast our worries, our anxiety on him because he cares for us. If he watches the sparrows, if he feeds the birds, if he dresses the lilies, if he takes care of the plants around us, if he takes care of the birds in the sky, how much more would he care for you? But we have to stop anxiety from being in the driver's seat. We have to stop anxiety from being in control. We have to let joy take that place. You see, I let anxiety take so much control, and in that phone call with my dad, I was like, well, what are we gonna do? And my dad, who's an absolute just rock star, he goes, Caleb, we don't have to worry about it right now, because right now, this is nothing. Right now, we don't have to make a deal out of something that's not a deal. We don't have to worry about something that we don't have to worry about. We caught it super early. She had a hysterectomy, so she had uterine cancer, so it was cancer within the walls of her uterus. So she had a hysterectomy, she had that removed, and she started radiation. And as of Monday, 2 days ago, my mom wrapped up her radiation, And my mom is like 99.99999% cancer free right now. But if we let anxiety take control, we wouldn't see that. Anxiety takes that 0.0000001 and blows it up so much that it becomes overwhelming. When the 99.99999 repeating takes up the rest of that. We let so many of these little things take control of what life is supposed to be, of how we're supposed to live, that we lose sight of what it's supposed to be. So all across this room, what I want us to do really quickly is I want us to just stand to our feet. We're not talking to our neighbors.